tables for people to...
I'm sure they are used on occasion, but
not as much.
No.
Do you use them?
No.
No. Why not?
I don't have a need.
You don't have a need?
You know, I'm not against them.
No.
And when there's a programmed event, it's great.
Yeah.
But
not organically, though.
Yeah, it's not like they got a living room area over in the there's nobody ever sitting in that thing over in the that I see. I go by but I mean I could go over there if I wanted to.
But you don't.
But I don't. No. I can sit in my office and read something and.
So what about the kitchen? You talked about kitchen. Everybody talks about kitchen. It's a great area, but it's not necessarily used for lunch. Like people don't sit there and eat. They heat up and they. So what purpose does it serve? Why is it such a conversation piece?
Well, I'm just once again. I think I've probably participated in all the high-end program things that have happened.
Planned events.
And that because that space exists. Mm-hmm. You can use it for that. If it wasn't there,
there's the flexibility.
Yeah, you know, and it can feel a little more spontaneous versus, you know, if you're going to have a meal or say you're going to have a happy hour and put out some hors d'oeuvres and a few drinks, that has a nice relaxed or casual versus if we were like in a banquet setting.
It's an in-house space.
Yeah, and so when you do program it, it's a nice relaxed feel to it.
Okay. So there are red rooms and where people can go and they don't need to be booked. You can, if you need to make a personal call. How are they being used?
You know, I see people use those. I don't.
Do you use them?
No.
No. Do you see others using
them?
Yeah,
on occasion. You know what it is? I'm not a big cell phone talker. I'm more of a texter.
Okay.
So. So I can just sit and text and get my thing out of the way, and I see people jumping. Like my wife, she'll text me. She won't call me.
Yeah. Okay.
And my friends. So most of my points of contact throughout the day. There are other people in our group that are. You know, if they have a half dozen cell phone conversations a week, they're going to be in one of those rooms. You know.
Okay.
And so I think there's a function to them. I personally, I'm old school. I think the rooms should have phones in them.
Some rooms don't have phones.
Well, the little rooms I don't care about, but there's a couple conference rooms that don't have phones. And
that must impede functionality.
Yeah. Well, there was an intent that was going to be the phoneless room or something. But I go, put a phone in there.
What was the intent for, do you think, with that purpose?
You'd have to ask our designer.
Okay. I will.
And I don't know, maybe they've been added since, but, you know, we've got conference rooms 1 through 10. 9 and 10 are over in our area. They're both set up with technology and phones, and we use the heck out of those rooms. But I don't know if it's 4 or 6.
Do you remember the number, conference room number?
4 and 6 maybe didn't have phones.
4 and 6.
Well, maybe they don't want people on the phone in those rooms. They just want.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what was the intent. If it's a conference room, if people conference, a lot of times they conference via phone.
Mm-hmm. See, you know, I could sit down and have a spontaneous meeting with you, like a meeting, and then halfway through the meeting, you say, "Hey, let's call somebody,"
right.
And the phone isn't there to do it. So and it's like it's.
So then that limits the use of that space in some extent.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah.
So, is the new design changing how work gets done or gets accomplished, or how people collaborate, and how collaboration looks now versus what collaboration looked in the older building? It's been 1 year.
That's a heavy question.
Yeah.
I don't think it's changed a lot. I always thought my team functioned well and were team oriented, and the thing is, when we huddle up. We go in a conference room and huddle up. You know, the stuff that's a little bit different is if you had a private office, there's conversations now where you're
going into the different rooms.
Is that a big deal? No, it's different. So you said, what's different? That's a little different.
Okay.
As far as our group, you know, when we need to get together, we have a meeting, and if it's minor, it can happen right there at the cubicle.
Right.
If it's going to involve more than a couple people, we go to a conference room. So I don't think it's changed
Changing.
a lot. No.
Did you think it would change? Did you want it to change?
Well, I think you always want to try to upgrade. So as far as, I think, at some point I think the individual cubicles we had in the old place they were like homemade. They were trying to accomplish something. Yeah, and all that stuff. And so happy to get rid of that and get the staff with a nice, modern, functioning thing. So we wanted that to change. And it did.
And it did.
Yeah. And I think we've got pretty good storage and space.
Right.
And,
so now you have less visual privacy. Do you, as a result of this new space, do you then reach out to people as a leader to that you would not have naturally reached out, or no? So that I think no. So the work is going on pretty much the way you were, and it was working fine, and it's working fine now. So that part hasn't changed, and the collaboration looks pretty much the same it was.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But
how you feel about the workplace and the company
I think
job, that has changed.
Yeah.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay.
And how that's perceived by people that don't work here has changed. And that's, in most cases, is probably a very good thing. In most cases. And if you have it could be dangerous if you have clients thinking we're lining our pockets with gold, because...
Cool.
So, I think, I think if you come in a place that presents itself well, it makes you feel, you dress nice and, you're both very nicely dressed. You feel good about yourself and look at this room. Nice.
Yeah.
It's a great place to hold a meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. It's real nice.
See, I was in the old building. And John Murray was in the old building. So he goes back.
Old building meaning?
The very first office that Bergman had was the terminal building. And it was over on Broad Street. Oh. And I actually visited that office when I was in college.
Does it still exist, that building?
Yeah, but it's like closed up, like a developer owns it, and it's in shambles. But then we were in the railroad building for like 18 years or whatever. And then, First Federal for 15 years, 17 years. So... I've had the thing where I remember offices in the basement, in the old cobblestone basement, and, we were a young company, but were those really a fun place to go and have your desk and all that, No. So, it served a purpose at the time, but I'm glad we've evolved.
Okay. So now in this new workspace, people can see each other more.
Well,
do you see any issues with that?
No, I think it's more the managers have lost some private space. I think the cubicles maybe were a little bit taller, but I don't think people necessarily. I don't think my staff sees the staff more than they did from the old. I think if they did what Philadelphia had, they would have. But I think it's probably a similar. We had cubicles.
Yep.
That had a certain height. Now these might be a little bit shorter, but when you're sitting down, I don't think there's a great difference.
So do you think there is any visual or acoustic privacy issue?
I'm surprised at how quiet it is. It almost
it is.
It could be a little too sterile for me. I'm more, but maybe I do like being distracted. Sometimes it's pretty quiet.
Yeah, for as open space, as open as is it, and sometimes I wonder, is it a function of people monitoring themselves? More than they would, mindful of others being in that space? I don't know. Have people come to you, and because now you can see what others are working on, whether they're working, this was the example it was giving to me, people buying shirts. Do they come to you and complain about others that I'm working and this person is not working? Is that a concern?
Well, we've had a couple. I had some staff that you could tell they're on their cell phones all the time. And it's okay to be connected, but if you're focused in your phone, you're not focused at your job.
Will you tell them? Do you tell them? Yeah, you tell them. So, because now you can see for the most part.
Yeah. One thing... I don't know, could change. Our group used to be so darn busy that